customs, it's port authority, it's shipping line. Everybody actually comes on a menu-driven system, right? Where everybody's part is actually played as part of the process that is actually digitized, the underlying process that is actually digitized. So for example, I cannot actually get access to information unless the protocol actually allows me to, right? So the security of data is actually maintained. We've done several use cases together with the government of India to actually ensure that these test cases are actually made on real life problems so that it can be scaled up to actually benefit the community at large, essentially. And this is not just important in a local ecosystem like India, for example, but it's also important that India is actually then well connected to other parts of the world. So the same digital ecosystem has to then work from an end-to-end perspective, covering various locales geographically, as the customers actually want that. And this is particularly important because of all the new trends that are actually coming up, like nearshoring, for example, like resilience in supply chain, like flexibility. So for example, it could be that a certain market is actually closed at very short notice, and the seller has to actually find a new buyer. And I think the challenge that is actually ahead of logistics companies like us is to ensure that the supply chain is quickly react, we are able to react very quickly to that problem and actually ensure that the new supply chain is then delivered as per the expectation of the client. So it's critically important that physical movement of goods is coupled with the flow of information as real time as possible.
In this field, I can explain our experience and one example. We are working into fields. One on the other hand in the hardware fields, and the other hand in the software field. Hardware, for example, we are developing, as I said before, efficient network 5G with in collaboration with the enterprise Orange. And on the other hand, we are working for more or less 10, 15 years ago with a quality brand, efficiency network label, which has allowed us to increase the agility and efficiency of our processes, and not only our processes in our port, but in other countries with which the plan has been successfully exported this experience. The quality level used by over 100 companies only in our port and in our interland includes significant compensations for the end customers if the companies under the brand fail to meet the established quality levels.
Okay, I think just to manage the time right, probably one question each, but before that, Mr. Tripathi, I mean, if you were to make one or two recommendations to the government, I mean, we are creating, let's say, a blueprint for how do we do this accelerated shift to smart, sustainable, more efficient ports in India. So as a practitioner, what would be those one or two recommendations that you would like to make to the government?
Thank you, Sanjayji, due to essence of time. But first of all, two quick comments. Ecology and economy do not conflict, they complement. It's a journey of belief, it's a journey of faith, and one that has to be undertaken because we are at the inflection point of a very critical part of the world history. Comment one. Comment two, I knew that Dhruv Bhai and I, we share a very long relationship, but I didn't know he had a peek into what I was doing into the future in ports and that we will actually be producing EV. Coming back to you, Sanjayji, quick one. One is that, take a cue from what we've done. We promised ourselves and to the maritime community, 2025, we shall be carbon neutral. 2040, we shall be net zero. This is much ahead. This is something that every port in India must take up, a carbon neutral ideal and a carbon neutral mission, as well as a net zero mission, number one. Number two, the journey is also about electrification, which we spoke, I'll just give you a quick example. Across all our ports, and especially the container terminals, before we arrive at the bulk handling equipments, we have gone on eITVs entirely. At Mundra, as I speak to you, the bulk of transportation intra-port is happening entirely on electric ITVs, and these electric ITVs are being charged, as my friend says, through a green power being produced over there. That's a journey that we all have to take. So that is the second part of it. The third part, yes, it's a little commercial conflict. And I have stakeholders over here, partners such as Tata Steel. Shantanuji, you are here. When we had to do this, we had to give a concession that some of our partners like Tata Steel came up. Would you be able to permit vessels coming with green fuel such as LNG and give a concession? Now here was a very critical commercial question. And I think, Rizwanji, you'll also bear me out. At the end of the day, when the PNL doesn't look too good, you must take a very hard call at it. We decided that the responsibility of running a green maritime ecosystem is not on the individual shoulders of a single stakeholder. It's collectively and jointly shared. And it's my pleasure to tell you that we have taken the joint responsibility by a concession for such vessels calling on us with green fuels to give a concession in the vessel tariff. This is promotional. How we shall go forward, we will have to see, but indeed this is promotional and we have begun. The other part of it, when I spoke of a biodiversity, engage the communities on a large scale, such as when we take up a green footprint, besides what is the mandate of the Ministry of Environment, about 25% of your green cover, we've gone beyond into the communities to say, such as a declaration made that 100 million trees by 2030, of which a good about close to 4 million would just come in our ports. Now that's a tall task. And as I speak to you, it's a very tall task, but I think this is something that all ports should nearly take up. Finally, I always believe that the PPP, which has resulted in so much of progress in India particularly, is not merely public-private participation. To me and to us, to all of us, it's a belief. It's people, it's planet, it's prosperity together. Thank you so much.
Okay, now 2 quick questions for you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's say if the private participation, let's say the private ports today have a 50% footprint in the country today.
Right.
So 10 years from now?
Thank you for that. The CAGR of the All India port growth is at a 6%. The CAGR of the the cargo which is not accounted in the government books is at a 16%. The CAGR with the Adani ports is about a 17%. We are at about 47% to be very precise at the end of 23 financial year. 10 years from now, you have shown the way. It's going to be landlord. It doesn't matter in which account we take the cargo. The fact is that we'll have a unique partnership with a government landlord model.
He needs to join politics, right?
If you do propose, sir, I will. Thank you so much.
Okay. On the same question, Rizwan. When I said private means private, yeah?
Yeah. So I think this partnership, as we can see, is working extremely effectively in that sense, right? So I think it's more about, leaving the business of running ports and logistics to private parties, and then actually being the coordinator to make sure that everybody is actually treated as fairly as possible in the ecosystem is something that the government actually must come in with policies and regulations as the case might be, right? So I think it's working extremely well in your port, Mr. Sethi, where, we've actually, managed to build a free zone. We've actually completely privatized all the terminals in that sense.
It was more like cargo going away from major ports or something. So what is your forecast, Dhruv?
Sir, I think, with the onset of the MPA, and in fact, exactly what Rizwan is saying, with more and more activities, and that trend has to continue, sir. So let me close it. I think, sir, that way the pressure is on Mr. Ramchandran and yourself and Honorable Minister. Sir, if we actually follow the MPA to the T, which means ports today move out of any form of operating and take their landlord role seriously, sir, then we have a chance of catching up with the CAGR that Subrat sir is setting. Yeah. But I think, sir, it's important that we follow it to the T, which means, sir, as much as possible, sir, should be privatized out for operating across the board. Then, sir, we have a chance. Otherwise, sir, I'm sorry, I think Subrat sir will be way ahead, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to say that we all believe in free economy, free markets, absolutely. But we don't like it very much when the private guys become very pally. Though you may like to sit next to each other in conferences like this. So free markets, yes, but absolutely regulated. It has to be regulated. You know?
Okay, I think we should give some time to the audience to ask a few questions. Yes, the fastest finger first. Yeah, the lady there. Then I have one there. Maybe just 3 or 4 questions because we have a time constraint.
Sir,
We
I
have to
have a
wind up.
question
Yes.
for Dhruv sir. As Dhruv sir spoke about IPA, that IPA is a government subsidiary. So how does this government subsidiary impacted on the subsidy? Subsidy. Subsidiary?
No, it's not.
Subsidy.
Sorry, I'll just clarify that. IPA is Indian Ports Association. It's a body which is formed by all the major ports collectively to perform functions in the interest of all the ports and frankly the entire maritime piece. So sorry, I don't see any subsidy angle on that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of a misunderstanding. I think it's okay. I think we'll take that question there. Yes, please. Quickly there. Was there any other hand? All
Yeah,
right, have one
I am
there,
Devdutt
yes.
from Tata Consulting Engineers. I head the maritime business. My question is to Mr. Ramachandran sir. Sir, the concession agreement, what we have between the ports and the concessionaire, does not till now clarify on the green component, green energy transition or the green components, what you need to put. So when can we expect that change, number one? With due regards to Rizwan, Subrat and they are doing on their own. That is my first question. Second question is to Mr. Sethi, that we are making Wadhwan and big ports. There also when we do the DPR, the green component is totally missing. So how do we induct in the design stage itself the green component? Thank you, sir.
No, we have this green port guidelines, the Harit Sagar guidelines, which we released a few months back. Those are for the major ports, but we are also thinking of extending that to the minor ports. And like Mr. Tripathi said, see, ultimately it's a question of self-regulation and everyone believing that it should happen. So I think we will nudge. We might not regulate at the moment, but we will nudge everyone towards green. And I think over a period of time it will happen simply because the economics will demand it. Because, it will simply be that you can't but be green, just as we have to be now using EVs after some time, simply because it's the way to go.
Okay, there was a hand there. Yes, please.
Hi, good evening. I am representing Tata Steel. I have a very small question. We are looking at a greener pasture of maritime world. Now, there are 2 things we are discussing. One is green fuel, and one more aspect we have not considered, that is shore power supply to the vessel, right? We have moved as a Tata Steel, we wanted to become